think there's a lot of speculation out there about what the Ravens are going to do at 14 or 45 or even trading back into the first round. There's some really smart people out there with much better knowledge of how those trade values become equal, how you can balance them out. I don't pretend to have great knowledge of those things. I've seen some really good tweets by, I think it's Ken Matusak. Forgive me if I mispronounce his last name, talking about JJ value and a couple of other things that help people determine, what draft picks you can trade for other ones. I don't really pay attention to those things. I kind of wish I did. I don't have the time to from watching so much film. I have a crazy idea that kind of expands upon a tweet that I think I saw him and another person having exchanging some thoughts on. One of the possible strategies for the Ravens is to trade 14. Obviously, if in under the scenario everyone that they really want is gone by the time that they start to draft there. And so I'll show you what I mean here. If Ahmad Gardner is gone, he will be gone. If Ahmad Gardner's gone, Charles Cross is gone, Stingley, Jermaine Johnson, if they're all gone when the Ravens go to draft at 14, who do you want them to pick? In my initial, photo that I just showed you here, I had Karlaftis there. I had Trent McDuffie, Andrew Booth, really good football player, Dax Hill. I think all of those guys to some extent would be a little bit of a stretch at 14. You probably are looking at guys you could draft in the 20 to 26 or 28 range, somewhere around there. Maybe Dax Hill a little bit later. I'm not sure, but he's quite a talented football player. Point being, the Ravens could trade 14 and get, 28 and 29 or 32 and 34 from the Lions or some other situation like that. I don't have a problem with that. Under this crazy scenario that I thought of this morning when I was looking at a couple of those aforementioned tweets, I thought, what if the Ravens think different? Instead of addressing a need, outside linebacker at 14, or corner at 14, and I think Andrew Booth's a hell of a player. I've seen more impactful plays by him than I have of Trent Duffy. Not that I don't think Trent McDuffie's a good player. People just didn't throw at him from the film that I saw. But my thought was this. What if the Ravens take the best weapon that is there at 14? Let's say it's Drake London. Maybe it's not Drake. Maybe it's Jameson Williams. But under this scenario I have posted up on the screen right now for you, Jameson Williams is gone to the New York Giants at pick number 7. But let's say the Ravens pick the best offensive weapon they can as a receiver. I'm going to say it's Drake London at this point. You may say Chris Olave. You may say Garrett Wilson. You may say someone else. Okay, fine. Plug that player into slot 14. Have the Ravens select them. And you probably are like, well, Coach, this doesn't address any of our needs. I agree. And this thought really isn't that crazy. I mean, it would be crazy. It would be batshit crazy for Eric DeCosta to do because it goes against what is his stated, repeated strategy with the draft. And I think he got that from Ozzie Newsome, which is stockpile mid-round picks, utilize them, try to hit some doubles and triples on those fourth-round guys that should typically be a strikeout, maybe a sacrifice bunt or even a single. Try to get as many doubles and triples as you can, not try to be a home run hitter. And for those of you that say, well, I don't think this makes any sense to talk about drafting Drake London or Jameson Williams at 14. Some of you are the same people that want to trade for Deebo Samuel, and I'd be okay with that too. I mean, he's a great weapon. I'd be fine with that. I'm the person who has said in those situations, in those scenarios, we might have to give a playmaker back. We may have to trade Devin Duvernay as part of the package to get Deebo Samuel. We may have to trade Devin Duvernay as part of the package to get back in at 32 or 34 or 28 and 29, whatever the case may be. So it's funny to me, some of the same people that say talking about drafting Drake London or Jameson Williams doesn't make any sense to me. But everybody else is a moron if you don't want to trade for Deebo Samuel. Come on, be consistent, okay? Be consistent. This is another avenue for the Ravens to get a playmaker who possibly could be as impactful as Deebo Samuel in certain situations. Now, neither Jameson Williams nor Drake London is going to be running the football from like Deebo Samuel did in the backfield for the 49ers last year. I get that. The point is, get a playmaker in here at 14. Then utilize that draft capital to get back into late first round, early second round without giving up 45. That's the part that's the batshit crazy part. Because you could get that accomplished by giving up 45 and 76, or 45, 76, and a third or fourth rounder in the next season. One thing that I think is a part of this that has been unmentioned, and maybe it just is a stupid thought by me, is in the original conversation about trading for Deebo Samuel, there was some mention I saw on Twitter by a couple of people that apparently the Ravens were unwilling to give up future picks as part of the compensation package for Deebo Samuel. And maybe that report is inaccurate, so me talking about it is a waste of frickin' time. But maybe it's true. Maybe the Ravens were unwilling to give up future picks for Deebo Samuel. I don't know about you. I'd give up a first rounder in 2023 for Deebo Samuel. I don't think you can draft someone immediately who has that same impact that you know is a proven football player. The problem is, the drawback is the salary structure that Deebo Samuel is asking for, apparently, right? I'm not here to talk about that, though. Point being, maybe there's a reason the Ravens don't want to give up next year's first or next year's second. Maybe they have plans for it already. So really what it comes down to is, how do the Ravens, or how do any of us who are thinking of crazy shit like this, how do we value the guys you could get at 14 if Jermaine Johnson, Charles Cross, Derek Stingley are all gone? Do you pick up George Karlaftis at 14? Is that what you want to do? Or is there really not that big of a difference between Karlaftis and guys who you can get in the second and third round like Arnold Ebiketie, Sam Williams, Drake Jackson? How much of a difference do you put in their talent level? Some of those guys played in the SEC, the Big Ten, in the case of Ebiketie and Karlaftis both played there, or Drake Jackson, who played out in the Pac-12. Who do you think is a better player straight up? Maybe the Ravens have the perspective that they can trade back 14 and get two choices, 32 and 34, 28 and 29, or whatever the Chiefs have. I don't want to trade with the Chiefs. I don't want to trade with a single AFC team. I didn't mention Josh Pascal, but I should have. He's a hell of a football player. Similarly, there's equivalent value in some of the corners that the Ravens could possibly draft. Trent McDuffie obviously would be a good pick at 14, or it sounds like he'd be a good pick at 14. How much of a difference is there between him and Andrew Booth, or is Andrew Booth even better than him? Where does Dax Hill line up when you compare those guys together? Some of the next tier of cornerbacks, how much better do the Ravens think McDuffie and Booth are than those corners? So the value that you get at the end of the first round and early second could be such that the Ravens are willing to give up 14. Here's the problem with that, if you ask me. And I'm kind of forcing myself to take this perspective. I'm a defensive guy. I would rather draft a shit ton of defensive guys and have the defense be great again. I think you're going to win an NFL championship with a great defense and Lamar Jackson and healthy offensive personnel. I do. But under this scenario, I'm advocating to find another playmaker, be it Drake London, be it Jameson Williams. The wide receiver talent, though, to me, it doesn't fall off a cliff, but it goes down a pretty steep hill once you get past Drake London, Chris Olave, Jameson Williams, some of those guys. I would like a big receiver for the Ravens. I think you could create matchup problems for some of the smaller DBs that the Bengals, the Browns, and even the Steelers have, to be honest with you. I think Drake London and Jameson Williams do that. I'm not sure that Olave and Wilson and some of those other guys do. Jahan Dotson will put him in there. My point is, you're not going to find a playmaker like London or Williams in the second and third round. You're going to get good player, George Pickens, Alec Pierce. Christian Watson has a lot of ability. So maybe the Ravens are going to stay with their tried and true formula of picking up good players like Pickens, Pierce, second, third round, early fourth if some of those guys slide. My scenario that I'm offering here, do I really think it's going to happen? No. I think it's got a less than 10% chance of happening. Eric DeCosta wakes up crazy on draft day and decides to pick at 14 Drake London or Jameson Williams, then decides to trade a future pick, and that could be the reason why they were unwilling to do so to get Deebo Samuel, because they already had plans for those picks, first or second and fourth next year, something like that. Some combination whereby they can trade back and get a Daxton Hill and get an Andrew Booth. Now, I think you'd have to trade up a little further to get Andrew Booth as compared to Hill. My point is, I would like to see that. If you could get 3 of the top 45 players, because retaining 45, if you ask me, is incredibly important. Now, you may say, well, Coach, that sounds hypocritical. You're willing to give up a first or a second in 2023, but you want to retain 45 this year? Yeah, I do. Yeah, I want the Ravens to get as many good players in the building this year as possible. This is the year that the Ravens have to hit back at the Cincinnati Bengals. And I respect the Bengals. I love their defense. That should be obvious if you watch my channel at all. This is the year the Ravens have to finally sweep the Steelers. We've been swept by the Steelers. We have. We've lost games to the Steelers that we should have won. To win the division, we have to sweep either the Steelers or the Bengals and then split with everybody else. At minimum, that's the floor to win the division. That's the floor. And in my opinion, the Ravens' easiest path to do that is to add a playmaker like a Drake London or a Jameson Williams at 14. And then utilize. I do not think we need Jermaine Johnson to beat them. I don't. I like Jermaine Johnson. Good player. Very good player. High ceiling. Could probably be a top 6 or 8 pick. But I don't think we need him. We have Tyus Bowser and Odafe Oweh. Now you may say, well, Coach, why do we need Dax Hill? We've got Brandon Stevens to play the slot. We got Marcus Peters. We saw last year you can never have enough DBs. We're never going to have another season like we did in 2021 in terms of injuries. We're not. That's a fact. Having said that, I would not mind going like this. Drake London at 14, Daxton Hill at 28, or even Andrew Booth at 24 or 25. And then at 45, getting the best edge rusher we can get. Now you say, well, Coach, you haven't addressed the tackle situation at all. I agree. And just so you know, I am an old school, tried and true defensive mentality person. 95% of my time spent watching film was watching defensive stuff and game planning to stop offenses. And I respect nothing more than a badass offensive line, and I recognize that the Ravens need that too. Having said that, people had the same, about a year ago, people had statements to say like this. Why did they draft Ja'Marr Chase? They need to improve the offensive line. Clearly the Bengals did need to improve the offensive line. That was partially their undoing in the Super Bowl, right? But let's be honest. 95 to 98% of the teams in the NFL, their offensive lines would have had hella trouble with the Rams pass rush. Agree or disagree in the comment section, all right? Agree or disagree with me right now that almost every offensive line in the NFL would have had difficulty pass proing Von Miller, Aaron Donald, and some of those other guys that they used to rush the passer consistently. Yeah, they broke down the Bengals O-line. The Bengals aren't there, period, without Ja'Marr Chase. Not even they're not even in the playoffs. Let's be honest. The Bengals have a much improved defense. Joe Burrow is a really great quarterback. I like his game a lot. That organization is going places. They're not in the playoffs without Ja'Marr Chase. They don't beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the regular season without Ja'Marr Chase. They don't. So there's other teams who have eschewed the need to improve the offensive line, waited a year to do so. Clearly the Bengals have improved it now, off season between 2021 and 2022. I would offer to you the Ravens have improved the offensive line with Morgan Moses. Hopefully Ronnie Stanley is healthy. Would I still want the Ravens to draft an offensive lineman either at 14, between 26 and 32, 34, assuming they trade back in, and 45? Yeah, absolutely, I would. Absolutely would. Somewhere along the line, we got to make a choice. And to me, if you're going to cut something out, it's edge rusher. You draft the edge rusher guys in the third, from 100 into the fourth round. That's where you draft the edge rusher guys. If you're not going to draft Karlaftis at 14 in this scenario, or if you're not going to trade back in and get a Beckety at 32 or 34 or 28, somewhere around in there. You guys let me know what you think of this crazy-ass scenario. Chances that it's going to happen, less than 10%. Hell, the chances, now that I put it out there in the universe, chances of it happening probably cut in half, less than 5%, right? But under this scenario, what do you walk away with if you're the Ravens? Yeah, you've given up a future asset, maybe two. Maybe you've given up a second in 2023 and a fourth in 2023. Okay. Well, hell, how many fourth round picks have we had in the last 6 or 8 years? We're still plus 12, or we're still plus 10, or whatever, in terms of how many we should have had. It would be okay to go ahead and throw a fourth round pick in for 2023, or hell, give up one of the ones we have this year. You walk away with Drake London at 14, Dax Hill or Andrew Booth at 26, 28, 32, something like that. And then at 45, you address edge rusher or you address a tackle or a center. There's going to be a center there at 45. It's not going to be Tyler Linderbaum, obviously. So you guys let me know what you think of this thought process, what you think of this proposal. If Eric DaCosta, if somehow you could, give him a certain alcoholic drink the night before to have him wake up crazy and go ahead and grab a playmaker early mid first round, like a Drake London or a Jameson Williams. Pre-national championship injury, if you had sat there and said the Ravens are going to end up with Jameson Williams on their football team in 2022, would you have taken that? hell yeah, you would take it, and you better take it now. Am I saying that I think it's going to happen? No, I don't. I'm trying to challenge myself and stretch myself in terms of content and offer opinions and ideas out there to hopefully push the conversation forward. And I'm willing to be wrong, obviously. But it sure would be awesome if we meet back here 9, 10 days from now and somebody says, holy shit, we got Drake London, Andrew Booth, and then we drafted Arnold Beckety with 45. Of course, we still got to address the offensive line. There's no doubt about that. Ravens are going to look to get as many good players in the building as possible. That's what we all want. I'm just offering to you that there might be a different strategy utilized to do so in the event that Charles Cross, Derek Stingley, Jermaine Johnson are all gone when the Ravens have to turn in their card at 14 on draft night.